So guys, as a group, answer these questions for me. Who is smarter, you or your client's mind?
Client's
Clients.
mind.
Who thinks they are because they're a therapist and they were trained by Tony Robbins or Darren Brown or went to the Coaching Institute because their certificate on the wall says so. You're not smarter. If my client's 60 years old, they've had 60 years experience of overcoming probably millions of different problems. Just because I did a Udemy course and got a certificate, I'm smarter now because I know how to do a regression, because I know how to do timeline, because the certificate says so that I paid $20,000 for. They're smarter. So we've got to give them the respect to be able to do that. And there's nothing more belittling than starting from this place and trying to steer the session your way to suit a technique. Make sense? So who has more insight into solving a problem and more experience, you or your client's mind?
Client's mind.
Clients.
Would you guys all agree? I would. Who knows your clients more, you or your client's mind?
Client's
They do.
mind.
Client's mind. Who has the final say, you or the
They
client?
do.
Of
The
course they do.
clients.
So why the fuck do we try so hard? Why the fuck do you prepare things? Okay. Answer this. What do all techniques have in problem? All of them. Regressions, timelines, scripts, language patterns, meta models, Milton models, relaxation, visualization, shadow work, inner child healing, reframing, age regression. I heard a recent one, which was lifeline therapy, which is just a repackaged timeline. I don't know how people get away with that shit. 8-hour breakthrough model, PLRs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every fancy name you can think of. What do they all have in common? All of them grouped together. It's all
They're
about
guessing.
systems.
They're generic. They're like one size fits all.
One size fits all.
So-
And what do we know about human beings?
Self-problem.
What do we know
Telling
about
them
human
what to
beings?
do.
They're all different. Okay? You cannot have all problems exist in the unconscious mind and techniques and scripts in the same universe. Please tattoo that on your forehead and look at it every day. It cannot exist. But the funny thing is, all gurus say that. It's not me just saying that. It's the one thing they get right, which is all problems exist in the unconscious mind. And a client's example of that is just a guess. We know this. We've seen this. We know this for ourselves. But here you go, Crystal. Here's a stop smoking script. You've now violated the very thing you've just said. And again, I think that's what makes ACH seem harder than it is, because unfortunately, those techniques become our lifeline. They become something we can fall back on because it's comfortable. Okay? But if all people are different and the client knows more, how the hell can I prepare for this stuff? How can there ever be a technique? There can be principles, but not techniques. Okay? So let's look at the non-negotiables for ACH and the hypnotic interview, and then we're going to get into not demos, but just some quick exercises. Okay? So non-negotiables for the ACH and hypnotic interview. You can't have all problems exist in the unconscious mind and techniques and scripts in the same universe. Imprint this on your mind, like I said. You can't prepare a session. Why? Why can't we prepare a session?
Because there's no way of knowing where the client's going to go or where they need to go.
Exactly. So why the hell do you put pressure on yourself preparing for something that you have no idea what's going to happen? Makes sense, right? So how can you prepare for it? You can't combine theories. I can't combine ACH and timeline or MAC and regressions. Why? I've just caught all those people that still do that, haven't I? Go
Because we're not treating the symptom, right, Scott?
Yep. Timeline treats the symptom. Regression treats the symptom. As soon as you start assuming, I think, okay, I've got it, now it's time for a technique, you're using something called forcing instead of organic. What if by getting good at the hypnotic interview and just getting curious about the problem to find, as best as we can, that unconscious payoff, I'm talking to Magdalena, ask a couple of questions, and all of a sudden she falls back into a memory as a child. What is this basically saying is going on? Sounds like an age regression, right? But the key thing here is she fell into it. I didn't tell her to go that way. And if she's fallen into it knowing that, the mind is smarter than us, what does that mean the unconscious mind has now told me as the therapist?
The
Anyone?
cause.
The cause could be. So if she falls into a age regression,
The
naturally,
knot. You helped us find the beginning of the knot, or
Could be.
where she may to continue on.
yep, could be. Even more simpler than that. These are all correct.
Her unconscious is telling you what needs to happen.
Thank you. Why would you force it? As Mick said, just sit back, be lazy, and just wait for it to happen. And if a regression pops up, I don't need to have 3 scenes. I could have 15. I could have 1. As soon as I know Magdalena is having her own regression, I'm just going to sit there and make sure she's safe. Go, cool, go for it. I'll be here when you're done. Her mind knows what to do. I don't have to take it through scenes. I don't have to reframe it. As soon as I start reframing it or telling her, what do you see in this scene? What am I now doing? I am forcing it. I'm telling her what to do. What if Magdalena goes through her entire lifeline from where she is now to when she was 1 year old and goes through everything she can remember? And it's well over 1,000 different experiences and scenes. That's what her mind needs. That's what her mind is telling us needs to happen. So why would I interfere? Now, how could I know that's going to show up until it does? Impossible. So I can't script that stuff. I can't prepare it. Does that make sense, guys? You can't guide a session. Why? Why would guiding a session backfire?
Because you don't know where the client needs to go, and then you're telling them where to go. So you could totally miss helping them being able to help themselves.
Thank you. So let it happen naturally. But as soon as we start combining theories, you're now forcing it because you start freaking out. Worst off, you buy a script from a therapist that said he's been doing therapy for 50 years and he knows all the best scripts and blah, blah, blah. It violates the very rule that all therapists live through or live by, which is all problems exist in the unconscious mind. Does that make sense, guys? So if I don't have to do anything, but I just have to be patient, there's no pressure on me to perform, is there? The only thing I have to do is get excited about where's this going to go. I'm curious. This sounds fun. Let's get into it. Does that make sense? Okay. And they're really
in theory.
go for it. Go for it, Michelle.
Question. I actually am going to have to jump off the call in about a half hour to go to a new client.
Okay.
Where I get stuck, I've done a bunch of these now, when I watch your videos, where we're practicing with classmates, when they first start and there's their first what's the problem, and they're telling you what's the problem, and then I pause it, I'm like, well, what would I say next? And then my mind draws a blank.
Yeah.
It's like, it's super frustrating.
Do you want to know
Like
why?
I right out of the gate, I'm like, I don't even know what I'd say to that.
Have you got the worksheet in front of you?
I do.
Look at the teething problem. What's number 1?
Finding the right question, but
Well,
I don't, is that what I'm doing? Because I'm just like, I don't even know where to go with this.
And
I
that's
get really kind of anxious.
you're putting pressure on yourself.
Correct.
These are very
What can I
advanced
do to
strategies.
avoid that?
We're going to go through that today.
Okay, good. Then I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, and again, these are very advanced strategies, guys, and it's sort of a fine edge where you go from trying to find the right question to just seeing what comes up naturally for you as well. There's a lot of trust that goes into that. But as soon as you hear what's the problem, this is common amongst all of us. I'm working with Christina. Christina sits down and I say, we did the strategy call. I go, cool, Christina. So what's the problem? What do you want to work on? She goes, well, as I said on the strategy call, I've had anxiety for 10 years. I want to get rid of it. She says that. Where do I go with that question? Does everyone notice I start going internal?
Yeah.
Because you start looking for the question to ask next instead of remaining curious. And that comes over time. That comes through instinct. Okay. We go internal, which is natural. Okay. Yeah. What anxiety strategies do I have? That's real internal. You need some therapy at that point. It's a fine line. It takes practice to go from trying to force it to organic, to being curious compared to finding. Okay. But here's the thing, there's one little cheat to get out of that. Just ask something, anything that comes up, regardless whether it's the right or wrong question, just to keep the
Right.
conversation going. Because once you're in
Yeah.
flow, you forget about everything and all this good stuff comes out. But it's that first initial jolt, which I know freaks
It
people
is.
out. Okay.
And I'm more aware of, like, I'm doing less talking with this method. So I'm used to doing much more,
Good, that's a start.
like you said, this is a whole new way of doing this. So it's
It's one little step.
not as flowy.
Yeah, some people will nail the interview, some people will nail the testing. It's just an amalgamation of all those things. Okay. But
Yep.
you go internal trying to find the right question, everybody's going to do that. I still catch myself doing that too. Then I switch into curious mode. After doing thousands of demos, it's hard not to, plus real clients and stuff like that. Okay. So